will always stand with Ukraine. Besides taking in 200,000 refugees, we have provided $13 billion of military and humanitarian aid. Let's not repeat the mistakes we made before World War II.
I can't believe this. Germany and Japan are our friends and Russia's the enemy now?
Ukrainians are fighting and dying against tyranny for all of us. To quote Churchill about the goal, it is victory. Victory at all costs. Victory in spite of all terror. Victory, however long and hard the road may be, for without victory there is no survival. We and our allies will continue to provide aid until that victory is achieved. Slava Ukraini!
This Guy's Garage. Like and subscribe.
Oral questions. Questions on the honourable member from Regina Capel.
Common sense conservatives will axe the tax, fix the budget, build the homes, and stop the crime. This NDP Liberal Prime Minister is proving that he's not worth the cost, the crime, or the corruption. Now, the NDP are pretending to be outraged by the Arrive scandal, but the Liberals didn't have enough votes to get the funding through Parliament, so the NDP came to the rescue and 8 times voted to keep funding no-show jobs and IT work that was never done. Common sense conservatives voted no. Had the NDP and Bloc done the same, Arrive scam would never have happened. So does the NDP Liberal coalition deal require the NDP to fund Liberal corruption?
The honourable member for Public Works.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This question has already received multiple answers. The fact that it's coming from the former Speaker of the House, Mr. Speaker, is obviously a bit strange. He would know that if he needs to ask questions to the NDP, I am not, and we are not on this side, the good people, the right people to answer those questions. I would invite our colleague to ask the questions to the right people.
The honourable member from Regina Capel.
It's his government's deal with the NDP, Mr. Speaker. And while common sense conservatives will axe the tax, fix the budget, build the homes, and stop the crime, the NDP Liberal Prime Minister is proving that he's not worth the cost or the corruption. The Prime Minister managed to find $60 million for his Arrive scam app, but now he's going to reach into the pockets of Canadians yet again and hike the carbon tax on April 1st. Canadians are struggling with out-of-control costs, and millions of Canadians are visiting the food bank for the first time. So will the Prime Minister just show some compassion and cancel his plan to hike the carbon tax?
The Honourable President of the Treasury Board.
Mr. Speaker, unlike the Conservatives who deny that climate change exists and want to take money away from the Conservatives, we have a question for you, for the Conservatives. In particular, what are they going to cut? Are they going to cut $1,100 from Ontario families? $1,800 from Alberta families? $1,200 from Manitoba families? Conservatives deny climate change. They're planning to take away hundreds of dollars from families. That's not common sense, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member from Regina Capel.
Conservatives are going to axe the tax and not take the money out of Canadians' pockets in the first place, Mr. Speaker. And their own non-partisan, independent parliamentary budget officer has concluded that Canadians pay far more in the carbon tax than anything they hope to get back in the rebate. And on April 1st, they're going to hike it again. And something devastating is happening in Canada, Mr. Speaker. People are starting networks on social media to coordinate efforts to go dumpster diving. There's actually one in Toronto, Mr. Speaker, and the founder said the most common answer we get to the question of why do you want to join this network is too broke to afford food. Why are they hiking the carbon tax, Mr. Speaker?
The Honourable President of the Treasury Board.
Mr. Speaker, note that the opposition does not rebut the claim that they deny that climate change exists. Note that they are not standing up for future generations of Canadians by protecting sustainability and acting on climate change. But I want to say, Mr. Speaker, the inflation numbers have come down below 3%. Yes. Our government is continuing to put money back in the pockets of Canadians, and we will be there for Canadians, offering supports to the most vulnerable Canadians while the Conservatives vote against every single time.
Mr. Speaker, a very simple question. When will the government release the Winnipeg lab documents to this House?
The Honourable Minister for Health.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. The short answer is imminently. It's going to happen right away. But I want to thank all parties because it is through cooperation and working together, the mechanism that we set forth. Remember, it is the Public Health Agency of Canada that makes decisions around redactions. We set forward a collaborative process that all parties participated in. And as a result of that, this is exactly why additional information will be deposed before this House. And that additional information was exactly the intention in setting up that committee. And that means that Canadians will have additional views on the information therein.
The Honourable Member from Wellington Halton Hills.
Mr. Speaker, the 4 MPs on the Winnipeg Lab Committee found that most of the information the government withheld from Parliament was withheld to shield the Prime Minister and ministers from embarrassment rather than to protect national security. These 4 MPs, including a Liberal member, recommended that the majority of the information withheld by this government be made public. Will the government finally admit that its decision to withhold documents from Parliament wasn't to protect national security, but rather to protect itself from political embarrassment?
The Honourable Minister of Health.
Well, Mr. Speaker, of course, the honourable member across knows very well it is the Public Health Agency of Canada, not the Government of Canada, that makes a decision with respect to redactions. And those decisions have to do with national security and also with the protection of employees. And what we said, and by the way, it was initiated by this government, is we said there were questions that parliamentarians had, wishing to see additional information. We then, working, and I would remind the Conservatives didn't want to participate in this process. They actually were against participating in the process that produced the documents. It was the NDP, then the Bloc, and then the Conservatives all participated, and that's exactly why this information is available.
You want to split that hair?
Ask order. Order. Colleagues, it is important for this conference, if I could ask the member from Ajax and the member from Sherwood Park, Fort Saskatchewan, to please take their conversation outside of this chamber, or to ask questions and to receive responses. Colleagues, the honourable member from l'honorable député de Laval-des-Îles.
The Honourable Member for Laval-des-Îles. Mr. Speaker, during the pandemic, we entered into a historic agreement with Moderna to create life-saving vaccines in Laval. Can the Minister tell us about the progress of this facility and what it means for jobs, for growth, and for success in Canada's biomanufacturing sector? Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Honourable Minister for Innovation. Mr. Speaker, I would like to thank my colleague for Laval-des-Îles and all my colleagues. We've delivered. Last Friday, I was with my colleagues to celebrate the end of the construction of the Moderna factory, the most modern factory in the world. They'll be here in Canada. We'll be able to build produce 100 million vaccines. Mr. Speaker, this is great news for Laval, and excellent news for Montreal, excellent news for research, and excellent news to make sure that we continue to be at the forefront of scientific progress in the world. The Honourable Member for Bellechasse-les-Etchemins, Lévis.